All right, The Coddling of the American Mind by Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt. How good intentions and bad ideas are setting up a generation for failure. New York Times bestseller. This came out in, it's been a second since I read this. I'll make sure I'm right. 2018. This was sort of right after all the college protests on the campuses. You had all the presidents of these campuses. You've had all kinds of riots. And these authors, let's see, Greg Lukianoff is a graduate of American University and Stanford Law. And I think Jonathan Haidt he's a doctor. He's got a PhD from NYU, okay? So these guys are, and he's a sociologist, I think. And so these guys are educated in, like Greg did research on free speech and all sorts of things in regards to campus, having speakers to campuses and cancel culture, although he doesn't like that term. And then Jonathan Haidt, same thing. So these guys, and there's more to Jonathan than just that, so go check them out. But anyway, this book, called America by Fire a little bit, it's a great read. It is a study on how we got to what I would call cancel culture, but they call it a culture of safetyism, and I like that term. But it basically, the thesis is that these good intentions from the baby boomer generation has created a weak culture here, especially in the iGen age group, and mental health problems that the kids are struggling to overcome. So they go into the past and they present it in a very interesting way. Actually, I found it interesting how they write the book. It is sort of in a way that is of untruths. So they explore untruths, like what doesn't kill you makes you weaker, for example. They present it in the opposite way, which I thought was unique. And it sort of keeps your interest, like anti-fragility, right? So anyway, let me just give you the summary. It's been a while since I read it. But what I do remember was that it was extremely well written, well researched. I found it interesting. They go through all the examples of the riot cases and the firings and the specifics on what actually happened. And you can use those examples. You can go to YouTube and you can look up the actual event. For example, there was a march on Washington, and you had the Black Lives Matter protesters come and join a group of Trump supporters. I think it was a Make America Great Again rally. And it's on YouTube where they come together on stage, and the Make America Great Again rally invites the Black Lives Matter people to speak in front of the audience. And it becomes this 8-minute clip on YouTube that goes viral. I mean, it's out there. You can watch it. So they reference all these different events in this book. But the thesis is this, that in the culture of safety, it presents weakness in children. They cannot grow and experience resistance and learn how to become adults when they're protected. So one of the great quotes that I remember from the beginning of this book is don't pave the road for the child. In other words, get the child ready for the road, not the road ready for the child. And I really liked that quote because it sort of sums up the entire book. I can understand why they started the book with that quote. But let me pull out my notes. It's been just a minute. So I want to give you the reasons that they quote how we got here. So how did we get to safetyism? Rising polarization, rising teen anxiety and depression, helicopter parenting, the decline of free play, and an increase of campus administrators. They say we lost a community leading to tribalism. The media networks became filter bubbles, and so did social media. Negative partisanship must be stopped at all costs. Okay? Thought that was very interesting, how they related all of these different culture changes to contributing towards the polarization of society and the weakness in this new culture. Sports and exercise are activities that have inverse relationships with depression. Listen to this. Gen 1995 to born to today, okay? 2007, 2012, social media begins impacting teens. Screens and less unsupervised time leads to less in-person engagement, and iGen girl suicides have doubled since the early 2000s. So there's a great section in this book on depression and mental health in the generation that is now in college campus, or in the 4 years at college right now. And they give the reasons for these problems. So iGen is suffering from being left out, and they see that on social media. So they're bullied via relationships on social media. They're being left out, they're being gossiped, and they have the appearance factor too. The girls are suffering on social media because of comparisons to one another. And not only are they getting bullied at school, but it follows them home, okay? So the cyberbullying aspect, starting in 2007, but really peaking in 2012, has now come, the effect of that is here now in our young adults, and it is shocking. So 1 in 7 girls at college thinks that they have some sort of psychological disorder. By 2015 and 2016, 50% of students saw a mental health counselor. There's a national rise in anxiety and depression that began in 2011, okay? And this one fascinated me. The iGen generation as a whole is developing 3 years slower than every other generation. That fascinated me. They said some people that turn 16, they don't even get a license until 19 years old because they're just so far behind in development. And the culture change in that generation has caused that. Alarming mental health trends that I wrote down that I thought I'd share. 2011 was really the date that they saw an anxiety and depression sharp rise. They kind of coincide that with the widespread adoption of smartphones and social media. The development piece that I just talked about, this likely refers to how they're taking longer to reach traditional milestones of independence, like getting jobs, driving, engaging in face-to-face relationships. And it's because this is because the increased dependence on screens and online interactions. And then finally, I wrote down this, which was huge. This is the biggest part of the book. Overparenting is a significant driver of the fragility seen among younger generations, particularly in academic settings. Challenges the notion that protection from adversity helps children grow. Instead, these authors, they note that they're advocating for the children to experience challenges so they can develop the resilience needed to thrive as adults. To me, it seemed like common sense, but I know it can't be because people are fascinated with this book. And it needs to be shared because I think there's a huge issue with this. And you have to experience resilience for growth, and without it, you get a series of mental health problems that are killing these children. I mean, suicides are through the roof. And so this book needs to be shared. It's a major issue right now. It's also coincides with the political stuff because it's almost like you see a shift back the other way now. We went through all the cancel culture, the banning, the protection, the safe spaces, the don't let this person come speak because their speech is violent and physically harming to people. Like, that was their argument, was that if I hear this person say this, it is going to physically harm me and it will be an act of violence. Therefore, we must ban this person from coming to speak. Now you're seeing that kind of shift back the other way. It was like, oh, that didn't really work. So let's all go back to this other strategy. And perhaps you'll see a shift now to people experiencing and pushing for things that you have to overcome. So they challenge your kids a little bit and let them out and have some freedom and learn to problem solve on their own. So anyway, that's the thesis of this book. It's been a while, and The Coddling of the American Mind, I thought it was really great. I think it's timely, and I think it was excellent. I was late getting around to it. But I loved it. And so, hope you did too. The Coddling of the American Mind, How Good Intentions and Bad Ideas Are Setting Up a Generation for Failure. Great book. There's also, I will say this, there are some videos, now I've not watched them yet, but Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt are on YouTube doing a bunch of different interviews and discussions regarding this book and the subject matter. So there is plenty of content out there that you can use to, enhance your reading experience with this book. So I would recommend you going to YouTube and searching those things. Coddling American Mind.